Just over 2 months ago, we stepped back into the familiar recreation of the Sinnoh region, reliving a Pokemon adventure from 15 years ago. Now, we get a whole new look at this iconic land, exploring a vast open world in a time long before it was known as the Sinnoh region. Pokémon Legends Arceus is here, and it does a lot to change the Pokemon formula. But is it enough to live up to the Sinnoh region hype? And more importantly, is it different enough to attract players who have long since abandoned the Pokemon series for feeling stale? Let's find out in GameXplain's in-depth review of Pokémon Legends Arceus. The game opens in a familiar manner, with you establishing a player character before being thrown into the world of Pokemon. Pretty literally in this case. You awaken on Prelude Beach, get it? Having apparently fallen out of the sky, specifically out of this large space-time rift. Something the game will never let you forget, mentioning it almost constantly. Anyway, Professor Laventon finds you and asks for your help to rescue the starter Pokemon, before inviting you to the village to join the Galaxy Exploration Team as a member of the Survey Corps, to help complete the first ever Pokédex of the Hisuian region. Yeah, as we mentioned earlier, this land isn't known as Sinnoh yet. While your player character appears to come from a modern generation of Pokemon games, as indicated by the t-shirt, cargo shorts, and an actual smartphone, your adventure takes place centuries earlier, back when these lands were first being settled. Though a modern protagonist thrown into a fantasy world is fairly common storytelling in Japanese media, it's executed well here. This isn't your average Pokemon game, where your character is implied to have lived as part of that world for about a decade before setting out on their adventure. Instead, you're a complete stranger here, who learns about this world alongside the main character, for the most part anyway. While the constant reminder of your character being a foreigner gets a little tiresome at times, it's not overly excessive, and actually works nicely as part of the storytelling. As a member of the Survey Corps, you'll investigate strange phenomena occurring all across the Hisuian region. Something is sending Pokemon into a frenzy, and they run the risk of hurting others. While working with Professor Laventon to complete survey reports for your Pokédex, you'll also work alongside numerous members of the Diamond and Pearl clans, native inhabitants of the Hisuian region, to investigate the problems plaguing the land. The story picks up fairly quickly compared to most other Pokemon titles, and definitely kept me engaged throughout the game, even if I ended up expecting a little more from the story in the end. While it was paced well throughout, it ended a bit more abruptly than I expected, and left me longing for some longer, deeper lore. Although some of this is addressed in the post-game, but more on that later. Thankfully, the numerous side quests helped compensate for the slightly lacking main story, and they explore smaller plot lines that are sometimes even directly adjacent to the main story. There are a lot of side quests in the game, with a large amount of variety. Catching specific Pokemon for NPCs, showing off completed Pokédex entries, finding lost items, crafting something new, and plenty of other kinds. Some unlock different features, like mass outbreaks of specific Pokemon, more options in different stores, or even more camps. And that's not even to mention how completing these different quests help keep you on a good pace towards completing your Pokédex, giving you specific Pokemon to seek out, sometimes even legendaries. The narrative has a great sense of progression that kept me engaged throughout. Seeing NPCs adapt to life, live harmoniously with Pokemon, how Jubilife Village gradually gets built up, how more and more Pokemon take residence in the village and assist different people, and more. This isn't just a world that you explore to complete checklists. It feels like a living, breathing place, with characters that actually inhabit a dangerous land. Your actions directly help people adapt to the scenarios, whether it's a villager growing accustomed to life in a new land, a life shared with Pokemon, or a clan member adapting to foreigners settling near their lands. It's rewarding to see the world get built up, largely thanks to your role in making it happen. For once, you're not simply on your own Pokemon adventure, before randomly getting involved in some big evil scheme that you need to stop. Instead, you're directly involved in the events from the very moment you arrive in this world. What sets Pokémon Legends Arceus apart from the mainline Pokémon titles isn't simply its story and characters, but also the gameplay. For the first time ever in the series, players are given a vast open world to explore filled with Pokémon to catch and battle. While the game was often compared to Breath of the Wild pre-release, that's not entirely accurate. Rather than one big open world, the Hisuian region is divided into 5 explorable sections: the Obsidian Fieldlands, Crimson Mirelands, Cobalt Coastlands, etc. While this may be disappointing to many, I really like this structure. Dividing the world up into sections makes it far more digestible and approachable. Besides, you can't even fully explore each region at first, with some sections requiring a revisit after unlocking a necessary ability, like swimming, for example. Even if it's not truly open world, each of these sections feel big, and it clearly took a while just to walk across it all, which is where the Rideable noble Pokemon come into play, as they help you navigate these lands in a variety of ways, such as by land, sea, or air. And it's quite fun. Exploring the Hisuian region on foot or with the help of a noble Pokemon is enjoyable in its own right, with plenty of items, Pokemon, events, and more to find. Stumbling across a cave, a rare Pokemon spawn, or a collectible, there's a lot that can happen. And even the most mundane of expeditions into the wild can yield unexpected results. Whether you're searching for crafting materials or a Pokemon to catch, it's really satisfying to just explore. As you might expect, you still need to catch Pokemon to add to your party and complete the Pokédex. This is still a Pokemon game after all. Only, it's not that simple. The overall gameplay loop has you discovering and catching Pokemon in an attempt to increase your rank, which eventually gives you access to more areas of the Hisuian region once you level up enough. But it's not as straightforward as just catching more Pokemon. Instead, Pokédex entries aren't completed until they hit 10 research points, and those can be earned in a variety of ways, such as by catching Pokemon, defeating them in battle, feeding them berries, witnessing specific moves being used, and many others. While this checklist approach could have been tedious, I found the system to be fairly engaging. Not only does it significantly add to the replay value, requiring you to think beyond just a simple single capture, but also makes perfect sense within the narrative. You're not a Pokemon trainer in this world, you're part of a team of Pokemon researchers. To study a Pokemon, you'd need to catch and examine several different specimens. I really enjoy how this game handles the Pokédex, making even the most basic of Pokemon encounters to be far more enthralling than a basic chance encounter. Speaking of which, encounters work completely differently this time around, requiring you to use your head rather than randomly stumble around for a lucky encounter, and only sporadically requiring you to battle them. When you spot a Pokemon you want, you can attempt an instant capture with a well-placed Pokeball throw, land a direct hit without scaring it off, and it's yours. Maybe. Because Pokemon, especially stronger ones, might escape the ball before it can lock it in, and then it might try to find you instead. If you're lucky, or sneaky, they might lose track of you, and you can try again. Or you can toss out one of your own Pokemon and initiate a battle to capture them the old-fashioned way. Part of what makes this push and pull so fun is that there's a ton of options for trying to catch Pokemon in the wild. While you could run in and just toss Pokeballs in their face as you charge through, you can go for strikes when their backs are turned, stealthily hide in tall grass or behind nearby objects to go undetected, throw berries or other items to distract the Pokemon before going in for the unsuspecting strike, and plenty more. The fact that tall grass is helpful for the player to hide in to sneak up on Pokemon, something completely backwards from the rest of the Pokemon titles, is such a fun touch too. The mechanics and controls just feel really satisfying when capturing wild Pokemon. And the feedback for hitting a Pokemon in the back, it's so good. Even with nearly 50 hours into the game, I still find myself excitedly exclaiming when I manage to catch a Pokemon undetected. Having the patience to sit and stealthily wait for the best opportunity to catch Pokemon only adds to the payoff, especially as a well thought out strategy can net you almost any Pokemon. Almost. The Alpha Pokemon, which are large Pokemon with glowing red eyes, often won't go down without a fight, shrugging Pokeballs off like water off their backs, before immediately targeting the player in response. But stealth can still be useful, by awarding extra turns at the start of battle if you can initiate a fight without being seen. Speaking of battles, they may seem nearly unchanged from the core Pokemon titles at face value, but they too have elements that make them stand apart. Turn order now plays a big part of it all, as it's no longer a simple back and forth. Now Pokemon have additional ways to attack, called Agile Style and Strong Style. Agile Style reduces the move's power and effectiveness, but can give it an extra turn in battle, while Strong Style increases the move's power and effectiveness, but can give your opponent an extra turn. A whole new level of strategy gets added when players need to think about the turn order, and how to manipulate it. Do you go for a weaker attack just to get an extra move in, or do you go all or nothing in hopes to take the Pokemon out quickly? Additionally, sometimes you'll come across battles absolutely stacked against you. Whether you accidentally aggro too many wild Pokemon at once, or you're battling someone from the Diamond and Pearl clans, you might find yourself pitted against 2 or even 3 Pokemon at the same time. Trust me, it can all crumble pretty quickly when that happens, so stay on your toes during Pokemon battles. These changes are incredibly refreshing, making me think through every decision made in battle, especially when we can see the potential changes while switching styles in real time when looking at the turn order. The extra layer of strategy really keeps battles more engaging. Furthermore, Pokemon can now know more than 4 moves total. Rather than erasing moves when learning new ones, you can swap out which moves your Pokemon will actively use. and this is an awesome change. While you can still only have 4 moves actively usable, you can expand your Pokemon's move pools without the concern of erasing existing moves. If you don't like a new one, just swap it out for a different one. Plus, you get a great look at all of the moves your Pokemon knows without needing to consult TMs, HMs, or an external guide. It makes battles even better when you can readily prepare your Pokemon with any moves in the move pools in advance. These are all welcome changes that I hope carry over to the main series, or at least are seen again. While I generally enjoy the Pokemon series, this might be the most fun I've ever had with the battles. Losing never deterred me, as I could more readily change up my strategy for another attempt before simply swapping out my team of Pokemon. Boss battles are another major new addition. And no, I don't mean gym leaders from the main games. When battling frenzied Pokemon, players need to dodge attacks and throw bombs to defeat the boss, all in real time. And though the first few battles may be simple, they get difficult later on. It's a testament to just how raw and dangerous the world of Pokemon can be in this earlier era, where you, the trainer, is actually put in danger too. When the boss tires itself out for an opening, you can initiate a more traditional battle, for a time to weaken its defenses in the real-time segment. These boss battles are a fantastic execution of the game's overall mechanics, ensuring players are careful to time their dodges and aim their throws. Plus, it factors in traditional Pokemon battles in an interesting way. I just wish there were more than the handful we get. Having some tied to side quests or some optional bosses would be fun. And the fact that the numerous legendary Pokemon later in the game don't use the same system is a major missed opportunity. So while I found this new system fun and interesting, it's also a touch underutilized. Overall, the gameplay in Pokémon Legends Arceus is very newcomer friendly. While it definitely gets difficult at times, it doesn't have a strong focus on the series' RPG elements. It has enough to get the idea across, making it a perfect introduction to the Pokémon series, but it also balances that very nicely with the various new mechanics, including the open world exploration. One area the game excels in is with its music and audio direction. While the majority of the region uses ambient themes and quieter music, when the music picks up, it's so good, especially the battle themes. Some of these themes go really hard, and are incredible remixes. It's almost a bit jarring at times, to go from quieter music befitting a vast wilderness to explore, to epic battle music. I do wish some more of the route and area themes from the Sinnoh region were remixed into the various ambient themes, but what we do have is great. In contrast to the great music, we have the graphics. Now, I need to preface this by saying the graphics of Pokémon Legends Arceus aren't terrible, but they're also not a technical marvel. Pokémon are lively, moves look flashy, and the characters are fairly expressive. Despite this, objects further away in the background can be seen moving at a very low FPS, if they're even visible at all, as many will pop into view as you approach. Textures for the distant environment are also notably lackluster at times. Furthermore, there's some visual glitches at times, such as animations glitching out. You'll sometimes find Pokemon spinning, not animating properly, or character legs struggling to keep a proper hold of the ground. Space-time distortions can also get pretty glitchy if you hang out by the edge of the bubble, with bright flashes of light obscuring your view. Despite all this, the animations themselves are fairly good. It's all a bit jarring, to be honest. Normally, graphics don't really affect my experience with the game that much, but it's clear that Pokémon Legends Arceus could have used some more time in the oven for visual polish. Speaking of visuals, the customization options are nice with how many different aspects you can change, between the hairstyles, colors, outfits, especially as more get unlocked over time. While I know it makes sense for the time period, having a larger variety of these outfit styles would have been appreciated, especially when it comes to eyewear and shoes. Another appealing aspect are the references to other characters in the series, such as the original Gen 4 games, or even other main titles. Some are more subtle, while others are more obvious. These references and character designs are great, adding more fun to the deeper lore in Pokemon, and makes talking to every character even more interesting. A big part of every new Pokemon game is, of course, the Pokemon themselves, especially when there's new ones to be found. The Hisuian region has several exclusive Pokemon, even more than everyone's favorite Hisuian Growlithe. While some of these designs certainly made me raise an eyebrow with the choices made, especially on some spoiler ones, all in all, I think the new Pokemon and forms are pretty good. I'm always a fan of some obscure Pokemon getting new attention, like Quillfish for example. It's also great to see new forms for the starter Pokemon, which is something I hope we see more of in future Pokemon games. I just wish there were a few more here. What's here is good, but pushing it further would have been even better. Perhaps one of my favorite parts of the game is the ability to pop your Pokemon out of their Pokeballs at just about any time. Once out of their Pokeball, you can interact with your Pokemon. If you then press in the right stick to turn off the UI, or even hold the ZL button to enter first person mode, you can get some really great views of them. Seriously, even while writing out the script for this review, I've just been sitting near Jubilife Village with my team of Pokemon out. It's very tranquil, and as someone who loves the world of Pokemon, it's even better than having your partner Pokemon follow you around. I just wish this could have been used with a proper photo mode. Sure, there's a place to take pictures in the game, but I would have loved an in-game photo mode you can activate at any time, like Super Mario 3D World had, for example. We're going to quickly talk about some story spoilers ahead here, so skip to the time on screen if you want to avoid them. Still here? Alright, well, after dealing with the main threat of frenzied Pokemon in the game, you're brought into the climax, ending with your showdown against Palkia and Dialga. This section felt way too fast, and the fact that the credits rolled immediately after this battle definitely affected my initial impressions. That's it? No more lore or explanation behind why we were thrown into the Hisuian region? Where's Arceus, the literal title Pokemon? But not long after this, the post-story begins, and thankfully it actually answers some of these questions. While I'm not a fan of the initial roll of credits, as I would have preferred this post-game to have been rolled into the main story, I'm glad these questions were at least addressed not long after I was asking them. Since it was revealed early last year, Pokémon Legends Arceus has been one of the most anticipated Pokémon titles ever. Exploring an open world of Pokémon is something that even longtime fans have been asking for since they were kids. So the question is, does this game live up to the hype and expectations put before it? Almost. Pokémon Legends Arceus is a very fun experience, one that will shake up the established formula and will surely go down as a fantastic entry in the series. It brings fresh ideas and mechanics that were very needed, rejuvenating a spark of excitement that's long been needed. And as such, I want to love Pokémon Legends Arceus, but I don't. Between a story that wraps up too abruptly, lackluster graphics, and various underutilized mechanics, Pokémon Legends Arceus is a game that, despite doing so much new, still feels afraid to dive off the deep end. With almost every aspect of the game, I found myself thinking I would have loved to see them do a bit more with this. Polish the graphics a bit, add more Hisuian forms, utilize the boss battles and other new mechanics more. Despite everything done here, Pokémon Legends Arceus still plays it a little too safe, which holds it back from true greatness. But, between the vast region to explore, exciting new gameplay mechanics, and a world filled with some of the best NPCs the series has ever seen, and so much more, I liked Pokémon Legends Arceus a lot. I thoroughly enjoyed my time exploring the Hisuian region, building up Jubilife Village, investigating space-time distortions, and catching mass outbreaks of Pokemon. Despite its shortcomings, Pokémon Legends Arceus was able to make me smile again and again, and I truly hope this is far from the last time we'll see a game like this. Longtime Pokemon fans are sure to enjoy this adventure, and it's a wonderful entry point for new fans as well. Game Freak made something that's both new and pretty great, and if it was pushed a bit further to meet its full potential, it could have been one of the greatest Pokemon titles we've ever had. Perhaps we'll get that in a Pokémon Legends 2. With that, thank you all for watching our review of Pokémon Legends Arceus. Have you been enjoying your adventure in the Hisuian region? Let us know your thoughts on the game and this review down in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe to GameXplain for plenty more on Pokemon. Check out the videos on the right for more content you might be interested in. And if you'd like to see more of our Pokémon Legends Arceus coverage, check out some of our guides. But until next time, farewell everyone.